and welcome. I'm Robin Forster with Feel So Alive and Feel So Alive Informed, and we're glad that you are here today. Just to give you a feel for how this program works, we have two different guests, and the first guest is about 10 minutes. That's normally our healer. Our second guest, and then we have hosted health tips from Feel So Alive. And our second guest usually talks for about 10 minutes, and that's usually a business person with some excellent tips on how we can improve our businesses. And then usually we run right to the thank you and contact information. And as always, since a lot of this program is live, even though our speakers, our guests, are recorded, there could be something interesting that happens along the way, or I'm trying something new. So just wanted to let you know that, and it is 2020 or 2021, depending on how you look at it. So let's go ahead and move on. Oh, and I'm looking down because I have my notes down. I've tried a teleprompter, and so far I have not had a lot of success, so I have a hard copy that I am working from. Okay, and our guest speakers today are Megan Daly and Adina Collins, which is going to be really fun. They're both very different. They're both very exciting, and I think that you are going to enjoy listening to both of them. But first, before we get into that, one of the things that we need to do, I feel, is because the world is a little wonky still, getting better, but still a little wonky, why don't we just take 30 seconds to send some good juice, good juju, vibes, blessings, a prayer, whatever it is that you do, something heart-centered, so that we all can kind of give back to the earth and kind of help everyone else here. And I have this on a timer, so it should make it a little bit easier. So we'll move into that now. Excellent. Thank you all for joining me, whether you're live or on the replay, for that 30 seconds. I don't see how it's going to hurt at all to give back a little bit of good feeling and a little bit of good vibe. And you may be wondering why this program, and the reason I started this is because I'm a solo entrepreneur and I'm into health and wellness, and I realized when the pandemic hit and everybody was going home to work that they needed some tools, and then I realized after working with that for a while that we all needed some tools. So that's why I have a healer on, so that they can give us some tools that we can use right away. Often it's breathing, because that is so important. And then I have a business person, because as a solo entrepreneur, I'm always looking for ways to improve my workflow and all those kinds of things. So let's get on to our first speaker, who is Megan Daly. And if you've seen any of the promotional material I put out, hi, I'm Robin Forster with Feel So Alive and Feel So Alive. And I'm going to stop that real quick. I spelled Megan's last name wrong. I spelled it like most of us think of Daly, and that's wrong. It's D-A-L-Y. So I just wanted to give you a heads up. If you're seeing it spelled a little differently in two different places, that would be why. That would be me. Okay, so let's hear about Megan. And today, my healer guest is Megan Daly. Megan, say hi.
Hello.
Excellent, thank you. And Megan and I met each other through a networking group that wasn't really about networking. It was a digital marketing club. And I started talking to her and finding out what she did, and so that's why I wanted her to be with us today. So if you're catching this live or on the replay, I will put her information down below so that you can get in touch with her, because what she does is pretty amazing. Okay, so a little bit about Megan so you'll know who she is. So she has an alphabet soup behind her name, which is a good thing. So she's a PT, a DPT, which is a doctor of PT, and also a CHC, and she is an experienced physical therapist and health coach. Let's see, she has her certificate in vestibular rehabilitation. Did I say that right?
It's vestibular rehabilitation.
I'm not at all surprised that I did bad things to that. Thank you for the correction. And she works with patients with dizziness, migraines, concussions, and balance conditions to help them have less dizzy days and take control of their lives again. So, Megan, we are so glad that you are here. This is exciting.
Yes, thank you, Robin, for having me. I really appreciate it.
Oh, for sure. And so, our first question for you is tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Yeah. So I am a physical therapist and a health coach. I have been a PT for about 8 years now. And I worked in several different settings when I first started out. So I was in subacute care, which is more of long-term care, but it also included short-term stay. So sort of that transition between the hospital and going home. And I've also worked in outpatient settings. And then as a student, I've done training in the hospital in acute care as well. So, well, let's see, when was it? 2016, about 5 years ago, I did the vestibular certification course, which is the gold standard for us. And that is the certification that allows you to work with vertigo patients. And you can still work with patients if you don't have that, but it just gives you that higher level of training. So you can help people that have vertigo, that have any kind of balance issue. They might have dizziness from migraine or concussion. And so I was able to work with that patient population extensively during all of that training.
Excellent. Okay, so that's what the alphabet soup behind your name really means for those of us who are trying to figure that out.
Yeah,
That,
it's definitely a new thing that PTs are now doctors of physical therapy. So we have 7 years of school.
oh, I was wondering because I have another friend who's a doctor PT, and so I was curious about that. But when I met with her, we got so sidetracked on other things that I didn't get a chance to ask. So, thank you. That's helpful. And 7 years, that's a lot. Wow. Okay, so why don't you tell us a little bit about how you got drawn into this line of work and the big why that you must have had to do 7 years of education?
Yeah, so I initially have saw a lot of family members that had struggled with vertigo and with migraine. So it was definitely an interest for me. And I was trying to decide if I was going to go into medicine or what would be the best route for me to help people and heal people. And I always loved exercise and health and the more holistic approach. So physical therapy was a great way to do that. So that was my initial driving factor. And then while I was doing my training, I was able to work with specialists in vestibular rehab who did all of this vertigo treatment. And it was just phenomenal to see how they could heal people that had struggled with dizziness for 10, 15, even 20 years. And they would come in for maybe sometimes just 2 or 3 treatment sessions, and it would change their life.
Wow. Okay, for those of us who don't have that issue, dizziness, will you explain some of the ramifications and the impact it has on your lifestyle?
Yeah, so the big thing with dizziness is oftentimes you never know when it's going to happen to you. So, depending on what type you have, if it's from migraine or from concussion or even like a positional vertigo, it can come on when you least expect it or least want it to. And so it can limit what you can do. It's also exhausting. So even if you're not having an episode of dizziness, it may take you 3 times as long to do the laundry or make dinner or do all of those household chores.
Wow. I had no idea.
Hmm.
Because, for most of us who aren't affected with it, we just think, oh, dizzy, stop, take a breath, did you eat? Not enough water. I mean, that kind of thing. But I don't usually think about it as something that could be really, debilitating and really a negative impact on lifestyle.
Hmm.
Wow. Okay. And I know that we've gotten a little sidetracked before on our discussion, so I'm just going to bring this just up a little bit. And so Megan knows that I have trigeminal neuralgia, which is this weird nerve thing. And so we started talking about the vagus nerve, which is very important and impacts all of us, even though we don't know that. And so we're probably going to do a whole nother interview at some point on trigeminal neuralgia, just because it's so weird. And the choices for dealing with it are really minimal. But did you want to say something about if that fits into what it is that you're doing and working with folks like that, or the vagus nerve, which is fascinating?
Yes, definitely something that I do. And what I like to do is look at the whole person and do a full screening, because a lot of times people get tested for more common types of vertigo, or they look at the most common types of migraine. But what gets missed a lot of times is, how is that vagus nerve working? Has it been affected by your concussion or your migraine or the trigeminal neuralgia, right? Because the vagus nerve is a big part of your rest and digest. So when you're calm and you're at rest, then the vagus nerve is very happy. But if you are not able, like if your body's not working the way it should be, then you're often in fight or flight, and that affects that vagus nerve. So it's a really important thing to look at, because that affects your healing, it affects your stress, and all of that can then just make your symptoms worse too. So looking at how the vagus nerve is working, looking at how your fight or flight response is going, and putting that whole picture together is all a really important part of my treatments.
Oh, that's good to know, because what I've been learning is, yes, all of those things impact. Like my husband and I were having a discussion the other day, and it wasn't going well. It was one of those kind, and so my TN was just flaring big time. It was like, I can't even argue with you because it hurts so bad. We're just going to have to wait. But so, and isn't the vagus nerve, someone was telling me it's so thick it's about the size of your pinky. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I'd have to double check again, but it is. It's a very large nerve, and it goes all the way down to your stomach. And so there's a lot of things that it touches as it goes through.
Wow. Yeah, it's just fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, so thank you for letting me sidetrack us a little bit
All right,
off
anytime.
the TN world. So tell us about, what are some of the things that you do and gifts that you have for folks who are trying to deal with this, and maybe they're diagnosed, maybe they're not.
Mm-hmm. Right. And it's more common that people haven't been diagnosed yet, because sometimes these symptoms are really hard to see. They're subtle, and they sometimes get dismissed by other providers who aren't as familiar with the signs and symptoms. So one of the things I do is the technical side of it. So I'll do the full vestibular evaluation, and I would love for everybody to learn that word, right? So that everybody knows what the vestibular system is, because it's a major part. It's your balance system, and it's so important. So we look at the technical side of that. How are you balancing? How are your eyes working with your inner ear and with your touch sense and all of those good things? But then I also look at all the lifestyle factors, because stress is such a big part of your fight or flight response, and that affects your vagus nerve, and that affects your symptoms. So we look at that, and we look at your sleep, and we look at what you're eating and see if there's anything that's really causing a lot more inflammation that needs to be addressed. So I like to look at both the technical side of things and also the lifestyle, because those can be just as important with what's going on.
Wow. Yeah, from my experience, I would agree with you wholeheartedly on all of those. And a lot of those questions, I don't think people normally get asked or even think about.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what are some things that people can do at home to take care? I mean, are there any things that they can do?
Yeah, there's some very easy, quick things that people can do right away, especially to help calm down the nervous system. For certain types of vertigo, there's specific treatments that do have to be done. But for managing more of the response to what's going on, diaphragmatic breathing is one of the first things that I will teach my patients. And that's how to breathe from your diaphragm to help calm down your nervous system. And just doing it for even a minute can make a difference.
And are you going to show us how to do that?
You want a little demonstration right now?
That would be great. I mean, I know we're kind of getting up against it time-wise, but breathing is so important that, yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So, Robin, you can do this with me. I'll back up just a little bit. But the first thing is to find your diaphragm. I don't know if you can see it. So, right under your rib cage,
Oh, good. That's better.
there's a spot right where your rib cage come together. Underneath that, there's just like a little firm spot. So, if you put your hand there, that's over your diaphragm. And then I like to put the other hand just comfortably across my shoulder. You just want to breathe and see where you feel your hand moving.
And that's the lower hand, right?
Yeah. So sometimes people will start and they'll breathe up here and they won't feel it down on their diaphragm. So you want to focus on your hand on your diaphragm moving and your hand up on your shoulder being still.
Oh,
So
interesting.
as you breathe in, you should feel your hand come off your belly a little bit. It should push it out. And then as you breathe out, you should feel it collapse back in again. So your hand should come in towards your back. And just focusing on that rhythm.
Now, do you do a count to this? Because I know lots of breathing styles. It's like, breathe in 4 count, hold 2, exhale 6. Do you do that or just suggest this or what? Or both?
You can get into lots of different breathing styles and there's different numbers. I always start with this just to make sure that you're using your diaphragm and not using your shoulders so much. And then once you've got that down, then work into, holding. You can do 4 or 5 count and then exhale for the same amount. You can breathe in for 4, you can hold, and then you can exhale for 5 or 6. So there's different numbers.
Great. And I have a feeling all those different numbers mean something different,
Yeah.
but I'm looking at the clock and appreciating your time and knowing that we need to wrap up. But breathing is so huge.
Yeah.
And I don't think people realize that.
Yeah,
So I'm
it
glad.
is huge.
But go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say, and breathing is huge. And the other thing I focus on is sleep. And I will tie them together. So if people are having a hard time with sleep, then they can do this while they're lying in bed because they're already in a comfortable position. It's easier to calm down the shoulders if you're using your shoulders to breathe.
Oh, that's brilliant.
Yeah.
Of course. That's why you went to school for 7 years.
Yes.
Well, Megan, thank you. And I hope that you will come back so we can spend a whole time on just trigeminal neuralgia and choices and what it really is and how to help somebody and all of those things.
That sounds great. Thank you so much, Robin.
Excellent. Yeah, thank you very much. This has been fun and fascinating. I hope that you all enjoyed that, whether you're watching live or on the replay. I'm not sure if I've got comments turned on or off. Facebook did something kind of newish where you have to approve to be able to make a comment, and I don't know if I have figured that out yet. But I hope that you learned something of value from Megan and the whole breathing thing. And I know we all breathe, we don't have to think about it, it's involuntary. But when you realize, if you stop during the day and realize how you're breathing, I mean, are your shoulders up? Because I do that a lot. Are you breathing from your diaphragm like Megan was showing us? Just breathing has got me fascinated because I found myself standing at my desk holding my breath, which obviously does not work out very well. So the next piece is hosted by Feel So Alive and Feel So Alive Marketing Group, which is my business. And this is always a health tip of some kind. Sometimes it's about a product, sometimes not. Today what we're talking about is I was fortunate enough to run into this YouTube, and it was Dr. Matthew Walker, who is fascinating and funny to listen to. And he was doing a talk at Google, and this is Google UK, and he was talking about why sleep matters. And it was fascinating. So if you have a chance, I think it's under an hour. You can find it on YouTube. It's just Google, really Google at Google. And part of what he was saying was that every major disease in the developed world, and that's including Alzheimer's, cancer, obesity, diabetes, all has a very strong causal link to a deficit sleep. And think about your sleep patterns. Are you getting 8 hours every night? Because it turns out that most of us really do need quite a bit more. And one of the myths that I found so sad is that, you think about when you get older and you become a quote, senior, that you don't need as much sleep. And I was kind of excited about that because I like to burn the candle at both ends, so to speak. And it turns out when you get older, which I am now, that's not true. I do need as much sleep as possible. It's really fascinating. But the whole sleep, and one of the things I wanted to share was to help our sleep habits and to help being able to go to sleep. The suggestion is when you get up in the morning to go outside for 10 minutes, and that kind of helps your body acclimate to where you are and gets your, I think it's the circadian rhythms. So think about that. And besides, how can it be bad to be out in, hopefully you can get to nature and you're not in the city where there's no trees, but maybe there's some other way that you can figure that out. But 10 minutes a day is really a good goal to strive for. So enough about that. Let's go on to our next speaker. And Adina, it was fascinating because I am not a financial person and I don't actually get the whole financial world thing, which is a bit of a confession for a solo entrepreneur, but she is amazing. So let's just go ahead and jump into her interview. Hey, we're recording. Hi, I'm Robin Forster with Feel So Alive and Feel So Alive Informed. And this is the first quarter of 2021. And this is the time when everyone's kind of looking at their budgets and thinking money. And some of us don't necessarily have the education that we should have around these topics. So I wanted to introduce you to our special guest today. This is Adina. And will you just say hi?
Hi. Hello, everybody.
Excellent, thanks. And she's going to be talking to us and sharing the information and the passion that she has. And what I am going to do, I'm looking at my notes, if you're wondering why I'm looking down. I'm just going to go ahead and let's just go with this. I have some questions for you. And the first question is, if you would share with the folks who are watching this on the replay, tell us a little bit about yourself and your background.
Well, thank you again, Robin, for having me. My name is Adina Collins. I am the CEO of Fortitude Financial Consulting. And I have actually been in the accounting finance space for the last 20 plus years. And in 2018, I decided to go ahead and launch my own business. I had been primarily working for local government, state government, and also in university higher education realm. And so I thought about going ahead and launching my own business because I tend to get bored really easily. And so one of the reasons why I said, you know what, let me go ahead and do this because I'll have an opportunity to be able to work on multiple projects, to be able to meet new people, and to be able to continue to learn because you definitely don't want to keep doing the same things over and over again and not have any variety. So that's why I was so passionate about starting my company.
Oh, great. Okay, so you've really got a deep breadth of education, of work experience. And so you're not so much the solo entrepreneur like me, but you're more the mid-sized businesses, corporate. Is that more who you like to play with these days, or?
I have a passion for startups, of course, because I was a startup as of 3 years ago. But yes, I love dealing with startups as well as smaller to mid-sized companies because, again, there's always room for growth. And also within the first really 3 to 5 years of operations, we're all still just trying to figure it out and also trying to determine where we are, where we fit, and what's going to be the best strategy for us to be able to get to the next step.
Nice. Yeah, because that is so important. Some of the mistakes that I've made as a small business, it's like, why did I do that? I should have talked to somebody before I did that.
Yes. And also knowing who to speak to, that's the other thing as well.
That's a very good point. Yeah. Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up because, yeah, it's not always the discussion with your dog or your cat that's really going to move you ahead in your business. Okay, well, so tell us how you were drawn to this. I mean, you told us a little bit about your background and your history, but why, what it is that you're doing now that really fires that passion in you?
I actually come from a family of educators. And so my grandparents, my paternal grandparents were actually educators, and so were my paternal great grandparents. So we have a number of educators that are all throughout my family. And I didn't realize that during most of my jobs, I actually ended up coaching people, training people. And I never really thought of that as teaching. It was just me, I thought, trying to be helpful. And so I'm just very passionate because I never want anyone to feel like they're stuck. And I really believe that one of the power plays that we can really have is making sure that we have a great grip on our finances, whether it's personally or within your business. It's definitely within your grasp. It's within your control. It's not anything that you have to feel uncomfortable or intimidated about. And so I just really want people to be able to have the information, to know that they have a trusted resource that could speak with them in layman's terms, and to be able to meet you where you are, and to make sure that whatever it is that you're doing, that you have a solid plan, you have a solid strategy, and that it's something that is definitely smart. Is it specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and is it timely? Is there a time on it? So that's one of the reasons why.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so you basically have this whole education piece in your bloodstream, in your DNA, so to speak.
I do. I do.
Neat. Okay, well that's exciting because I think it's real different when you're raised with educators. There's kind of a different focus in the household because everyone's doing that.
Right.
Yeah, that's very neat. Okay, and so one of my other questions for you is the gift that you want to share with the world, the tips and suggestions. And it's so easy for me to say tips and tricks because that kind of rolls off my tongue. But we're talking accounting, so it's not really tricks. So, what are some things that you want to recommend to, both the startups that you were talking about that's a passion for you, and also those better established companies that maybe don't know that they should be looking under here for this and they think they've found it there? And yeah.
Well, I would definitely say always be open to hearing something from a neutral third party. That's what I consider myself to be. So I am, although I do have an accounting background, I am a financial professional, so I can work with you, down in the weeds, or also look at bigger picture financial strategy. And so usually if someone's contacting me, it's more for the financial strategy, 10,000 foot level. What is it that you see that maybe we don't see? Because sometimes you can be so close to an issue that you end up being blinded by it. And so I would always say, make sure that you are open, that you are willing to be able to take a look at someone else's perspective and not personally. Secondly, I would definitely say make sure that you are staying on top of your records. Record keeping, of course, is always really, really wonderful to have. I know we haven't gone completely paperless yet, but if you can, for those of you who still can maintain paper records, please make sure that you're keeping it up to date. And for those who only maintain paper records, make sure that you are beginning to go ahead and move to an electronic backup storage type of system, because again, you never know, anything can happen to a physical space, a physical building, and no one, of course, anticipated the pandemic. So you're going to need to have access to records even when you can't get in to be able to, get into your physical building. I would definitely say as well, it's very, very important that you take time to be able to do business planning, business succession planning. Although it's not necessarily directly tied to accounting, it can cost you if you don't take the time to be able to do that. Sometimes we need to be able to understand what our numbers mean, to be able to focus our eyes on the things that are actually making us money versus things that could be obsolete and costing us money. So you really have to make sure that you're keeping your eyes, your vision open to make sure that there's nothing that you're overlooking in reference to that. And it's okay to say, you know what, I don't understand this. Can you please explain it to me in a way that makes sense to me? So I would definitely recommend those tips.
Well, I was just reflecting because, I'm going through the end of year and start of the, new year and looking at that. And I'm paying for 3 different online storage areas, which makes absolutely no sense. And so now I'm reevaluating that. And if I hadn't, like you're suggesting, if I hadn't taken the time to stop and to look, I probably would have just continued paying those monthly fees because you don't really think about it. It's an automatic deduction.
Yeah.
But, when you multiply those fees out, maybe it's only $5 or $10, $15 a month, but times 12.
That's right.
And I think that's surprising for people when you don't think about it. Do you run into folks who all of a sudden they're going, oh, I had no idea this was hundreds of dollars at the end of the year?
I do, whether it's with their personal finances or also with business finances, because the thing is that if you're on the business side, you could have potentially taken those savings and reinvested back into your company, or if you decided you wanted to go ahead and invest in advertising, or even potentially being able to work with a consultant who could maybe help you short term on a project. It's sometimes the small things that you end up taking a look at. I think Benjamin Franklin once said, beware of small leaks in a ship. That is, it could be the one thing that ends up making you sink over time, but you're not realizing it, again, because it's happening so slowly. And so if you're not really being vigilant about that, that's something that we can all overlook. But, now that we've brought it to your attention, hopefully it'll kind of turn that light bulb on.
Yeah, oh, that quote's really good. Okay, so I'm watching the clock, and we've got about a minute or so left. And so what are some tips, some takeaways that people can use? I mean, you've given us some good information, and is there anything else that you want to share with us?
I would definitely say, please make sure that you stay tuned in reference to any major changes that may be happening in Washington. And what I mean by that is there's going to be more and more information that's going to be disclosed in reference to the recent CARES Act, especially for business owners. So for those of you who may be having a difficult time because of the changes that have happened due to the pandemic, just know that there will be additional support that will be coming. And even for those who may have previously received that type of funding, there's been additional changes that may give you a little more cushion in reference to how you were able to spend previous monies. So I would definitely say keep your eyes peeled regarding that. And also don't be afraid to make another pivot, because nothing stays the same. So if you need to pivot one more time in your business to be able to meet a current need, feel free to do that. You're just going to continue to expand yourself, and you will ensure that you will always have a place and a space for your individual business.
Great. And then we're going to talk more about this in another interview, but do you want to tell everyone what you have coming out or going on?
Sure. Well, you know what? Finance guys are not all boring. And so about a month ago, I actually released my first e-cookbook. And so I think that'll definitely be a good treat. So I definitely encourage you guys to stay tuned for the next interview for that.
Super. Thank you so much. I appreciate you making time for us.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Okay. Oh, that's interesting. I'm not exactly sure what happened, but I am not surprised that something interesting, unusual, and not what I had in mind just happened. What I was trying to pull up was a transition before we start talking about saying goodbye. And my Mac and I, we don't always play nice. So somehow things get off to the side. There we go. I finally dug it out from the side. If anyone is a Mac user and understands why all of a sudden the screen goes off to the side and is gone, I would love to hear from you and find out how to not have that happen. But I just wanted to say before we say goodbye and close up that Adina, she knows her stuff financially. Okay, there's that piece. But also a cookbook, and I have to say that I'm not much of a cook, but I really want, one of her recipes looks really, really good that I want to try. And she also has a podcast, and I didn't get a chance to tell you about that before, but she launched a podcast called Black Icons and Innovators. And she's also the author of Caught to Tot, 10 Pearls to Know Before Launching Your Number One Business. So a multi-entrepreneur, to put it mildly, or a serial entrepreneur. And we'll go ahead and close this program. We're always on the second and fourth Thursdays at 1 o'clock. I almost said Eastern time, Pacific time, unless there's a holiday, which happened in November and December. So please do come join us. And let's see. So March, we're the 11th and the 25th. In April, you can see we're the 8th and the 22nd. Don't forget to follow or like us on Facebook at Feel So Alive MKGP, and that's for marketing group, because who wants to type the whole thing out? And also subscribe and click the bell on YouTube so that you will know when we're going to be going live again. And thank you very much for your time. We appreciate you. And if there's a topic or a subject or a healer that you would like to hear from, please let us know. It's Robin at feelsoalive.biz, and I'm more than happy to reach out to them. Thank you for your time.